Hey, everybody! I've missed you. How are you? Have you been washing your hands? I am excited today because I get to interview a guy who I look up to, and not just because he's taller. This guy.
I am taller. I'm much taller.
You are slightly taller. He's a Hall of Fame speaker. He's a motivational keynote speaker. He's a student speaker. He's a speaker for everybody speaker. I don't even know what you do, Mark. Please welcome to our little stage. This is Mark Scharenbroich.
Yay! Hey, hi, Brad.
So, thanks for being here. We're a little bit.
I want to thank you, and I want to thank the viewer.
Hey, who's to say there's not a few people out there, and one of them may or may not be Sue or Kim, our wives. I don't know.
Oh.
Hey, dude. I don't even know where to start. I haven't talked to you really since the pandemic. Can we first start with how are you doing personally? How are you hanging? How are you?
You know, I tell you what, we're doing great. I mean, I really am. We stopped. My last presentation was in February. Got off the road from March 1st. I mean, I'm out of Minneapolis, right?
Right.
I'm a Minnesotan, land of 10,000 lakes, all of them frozen as I speak. And we have a cabin up in northern Minnesota. And as soon as the pandemic hit, we came up here, and we've been here ever since. And I've done a few virtual things, but I'm happy up here. And I know that we're going to get back to the way things used to be in a bit, but so far so good.
So many of our peers, when I talk to them, and by the way, I'm one of those. When it first hit, Mark, I was fighting it. I wasn't really quick to settle into, oh, right, here's how it is. I'll just put my feet up. I'll start figuring out virtual. I was really fighting it. Did you do any of that?
Yes, because for 40 years I've been an earner. And suddenly that was all cut off. I've never been, okay, I was fired once from a job, twice. But I've never been, hey, we're done with you. And I was done with. And I think that's what a lot of us went through. But what I went through is nothing compared to, I was talking to some, I visited a classroom yesterday with seventh and eighth graders and what they're all going through. And as I look at when I was in middle school, junior high in the 60s, you had Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, you had the Vietnam War, you had the protests, you had a real rebellion of baby boomers against the greatest generation, based upon how much hair you had or whatever, the hippies. There was a lot of turbulence. But if you take a look at what these kids are going through now, between George Floyd, Minneapolis, and our protests this past summer, to the pandemic, to the economy, to the political, what is going on? I mean, all of this conflict, tense stuff, life is totally different as we know it in a very short window. So, take your pick of
Yeah. How would you like to be miserable? Would it like to be race relations? No. How about a worldwide pandemic? No. What else you got? You're out of work. I'll take that.
You have no income coming in, and
Well, you're talking about not. You've been an earner. For me, I'm lucky enough and old enough to have a few nickels in the bank, so we're not going to lose our house, and I got a full fridge. But, dude, that was like a psychological thing where, spending more than I was earning and thinking, did I just retire? I didn't want to retire.
Financially, I always listen to, save up money for a rainy day so the monsoon hits, so we're okay. But so first of all, the expression of not being an earner, not being able to go out there. But secondly, the creative juice. I don't need to be on a stage to enjoy myself or be in front of a group of people and hear applause or laughter, although it's wonderful. But the creativity of those juices, the creative juices, and sure, you can sit down and write and come up with material and try to be creative that way. But yeah, that's what I miss is the creative juice. Excited to get back into that world.
Well, now that it's been a year-ish, what are you doing to fill that void with the creativity?
Writing, it's funny. The first, there's pandemic part 1, which is March through December, and pandemic part 2 for us, which is January 1st through when this thing is kind of over. And now is when I'm starting to really go through all of my old notes. I have notebooks upon notebooks. How Jerry Seinfeld has little scripts of paper and bar napkins, and you do the same thing, Brad. When you write humor, you have an idea. Larry David, the most important thing to him in the world, co-creator of the Seinfeld show, was in his notebook. He said he lost one of his notebooks with ideas, and it just, of all the things to lose in the world, it was the worst thing. So taking all those little, where I'm going is taking all those little notes and ideas and things I've had throughout the years, and finally taking time, because I had as soon as I've got some time, I'll go through that. I've got some time. And so I'm going through those old notes. And some of them I have no idea what I was writing. Some of them are absolutely gems and some of it's trash, but it's fun to go through and do some gold mining for ideas from the past 30 years that I've had for writing a presentation.
Yeah.
How about you? What have you been doing to get the creative stuff going?
Isn't that cute? You think I've got that creative stuff going. Adorable. So yeah, happily, just recently, it feels like the phone has been ringing, and that was nice because in March I had to call myself to make sure I had a phone. But that's a whole, we got to get into that. But I still have tons of time, so the main thing I've been doing is not speaking. It's right over there. I've been playing drums a lot. When I was a kid and through college, I thought I was going to be a professional musician, and I got a drum set in my office, which is really fun. So I've been hammering on that thing. Really fun.
We had chickens.
Drum set where you get to pound on things.
No, when I was a kid in high school, our teacher said, write down 50 before 50. 50 before 50. 50 things you want to do before you turn 50. And big things, little things, funny things, don't share with anybody, because if you share your dream list with people, they'll go, don't want to, don't shoot too high on that one. Anyway, I wrote down all these different things, and I found the list in digging through the notes. And when I was 18, I said, raise chickens. And when the pandemic hit, we got some egg layers, and so I have chickens now. And
did you have to build a coop?
Yeah.
And I'm guessing that was fun, right? You were out there going.
I'm a horrible carpenter. If I had to make a living as a carpenter, I would starve. But it's good enough for chickens.
Right, I kind of like those things. Plus, that's not the thing anyone's really going to come and judge your angles. Like, wasn't exactly a true right degree angle. Pretty fun.
Chickens like it.
How many chickens do we have?
I had 5. An eagle got 1. Actually 2. Eagles swoop right in, and boy, they're gone.
Do you have a roof on your...
The point is for our listeners is, if there's something you've always wanted to do, now's a good time to try it out.
Mark, I want you to put one more thing on your list, and that is make a roof for the chicken coop.
It's there, silly.
So, and what is the joy of chickens? Is it the getting the eggs and saying, "Oh, I'm responsible for the chicken that laid this egg," or is it, are you making fried chicken, or is it something else that I haven't thought of?
It's one of the oldest partnerships of mankind. Chickens are not very good at taking care of themselves. Thus, eagles, fox, everything is after chickens. Chickens need us. And so we protect chickens, and in turn, we get eggs. It's a deal. Take care of me, I'll take care of you. And so there's a partnership. The best things in life are true partnerships. That's why I love chickens. Plus, there are a million expressions, all based upon chickens, Brad. Chickens came home to roost. Pecking order. Come on, there's a ton.
Well, here's what I didn't even hear you talk. All I could hear was, "Oh, Mark's got a new story for his keynote."
No, I don't think there's any relevancy for an audience whatsoever. But you know what it is? It's, some people meditate, or they're really good at yoga, or all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. I pull out a lawn chair and sit and watch chickens, and because they're just fun to watch. They just hang around the yard and peck, and you need to find something that just lets your mind not think about anything except for what's in front of you.
I live in the suburbs, but we live right up against this house that is farm-ish. it's a 40-year-old house. And they have a barn and they have chickens. And we get to go play with their chickens without being responsible for the chickens. But my favorite, of course, is the rooster because I love that guy. He is noisy. Do you have roosters?
No, we just have hens. All we want are eggs. We don't want little chicks. And I'm not sure about this, how much your dad or mom talked to you about this, Brad, but in order to have little chicks, you need a rooster and a hen, and then things happen.
When a rooster and a hen love each other very much, they get very close to each other. Palmo is here. If you liked it, then you should have put a roof on it. Oh. All right. Yeah, he's mocking you. I think the Eagles. We're worried about your Eagles.
There's a roof on the coop. It's just when they go to the yard in free range. So do eagles. All right. So you know what we've done, Paul, is we guess what? I did the Google thing. And if you take string and tie it between all your different trees, like Charlotte's Web, it scares the chicken hawks and eagles away because they can't swoop in. They see that string and they go, can't get that. But that's what we discovered after we lost a couple of chickens.
Oh, I want to see a picture of your yard now because I'm picturing yarn everywhere.
Yeah, it's really quite beautiful.
Well, so you're a motivational speaker, and when I think of you, Mark, besides thinking, dang, he's good, I want to be good like him one day, I also think that you just have experience and you have been hammering this nail for so long. And as I look towards excellence for myself, I realize you can't manufacture excellence. You can't you can't manufacture experience. You can't study experience. You just have to go do it. And to that end, I found some stuff of you on stage. This is the website. So, tell it. How old were you when you first started speaking? And what's the backstory on this? How did you get into this? Because you have a non-traditional path, I think.
That was year one where I used to wear a vest. So in high school, I was a stage speech champion, humorist and terp. So we both grew up on the Funny Bone. And our senior year in high school, we formed a comedy group called Mom's Apple Pie. Sketch comedy, Monty Python, Ace Trucking Company, pre-Saturday Night Live stuff.
Yeah.
And so it was 4 guys and a gal, and we did shows. And we performed in high school. So about a bus. It looked like the Partridge Family, except we crossed out Partridge Family, put Mom's Apple Pie comedy troupe. And we did shows. And our goal is to be on the Carson Show. But then the group broke up after 4 years because of Yoko Ono, my wife, got married. But then I started going as a solo, going back to those same schools where the comedy troupe performed in high schools and colleges. I went back as a solo, which is where the picture's from. I'm doing an assembly for high school students, not Fellowship of Christian Athletes, kids in the gym, because Fellowship of Christian Athletes are really sweet, 4-H really sweet, kids in a gym, tigers in a cage. Did you ever speak to youth like that?
I have, but I don't want to tell you about it because it's too embarrassing. All right, so here's the story. I did.
So
I came and saw you, dude, in I was doing magic and wanted to be a speaker and didn't know really what speaking was. And our friend Steve Sprangler said, Mark Scharenbroich is at Heritage High School nearby. Let's go.
Oh, that's right. That's Steve.
And I saw you on center court with both basketball sides full. And I just about pooped my pants because I pictured myself there going, that is too terrifying. And I have done that since. And I never learned how to do that. I was horrible. I think
I don't think it's true. You capture any audience, but I
was there. Totally did not capture them. I was there.
I did 3,500 school assemblies throughout North America. Suburban schools, city schools, rural schools, little tiny schools, big schools, 3,000 kids in a field house. And I liked it. But then as I got older, I needed to make the transition. And business people in a Marriott ballroom scared, like you looked at the people in the gym, that scared you. People in a Marriott ballroom, business people, when I would check into a hotel, that's what scared me. And so, because I knew how to present, because kids teach you that, but I had no idea what to say. So that was the biggest part of my career, was making that transition from kids in a gym to adults in a ballroom.
Let me go back. So all of this, first year in the comedy troupe, and then you say, all right, I'll do it alone. is that right after college, or when was that? How young were you?
I got married when I was 23, and Susie and I have been married for 43 years. So, I mean, I was in my early 20s speaking in gyms.
You were busting up.
My presentation was called The Greatest Days of Your Life So Far, which means that high school is maybe not the best time for a lot of kids, but as long as you're here,
right,
make the time count. And here's how you do it. So in essence, it was a message about engagement and being a nice person, not be a jerk, play nice in the sandbox.
And did you earn a living right off? So you were with your troop, which what I hear with troop is you got to divide your income by 4 or 5 or whatever.
Yeah.
At what point did you say, I guess this is my job?
So, I mean, back then assemblies were about $100 a show, right? And so you had to do a lot of shows to be able to make a living. And a company called Jostens, class ring people, yearbook people, hired me as kind of a value-added part of what they do. Not to talk about rings or yearbooks, but to tell kids to be involved, get involved, because kids that love high school are more likely to buy a class ring or a yearbook back then than kids that hate high school. So Jostens hired me, and there were very few youth speakers at that time. It was, supply and demand was in my favor. And they said, well, we need to replicate you. And in high school, in health class, remember the films they used to show in health class? Kids in car accidents and venereal disease and that sort of thing. They showed a movie of Bob Richards, who's a decathlon winner, endorsed by Wheaties. And he did a speech on a 16 millimeter film that was my very first motivational speaker guy, Bob Richards, decathlon winner, way back when in the Olympics. And I thought, you know what? Why don't you just make a film of me speaking? Now, this is pre-HBO comedians, or anything like that.
Right.
No special. It was just film me at my hometown high school doing the Greatest Days speech. And they said, okay. And so I did the film, edited it, put all these cool scenes at the end. It went out to 10,000 schools every year in the 1980s as an orientation film for freshmen coming in and seniors to watch it again when they're leaving. Well, that created an incredible market. And so after 5 years, I left Jostens just to go full-time speaking. And so it's, that was the door that really opened it for me.
I can't imagine that. That is so cool. So they're showing you twice a year to their freshmen and their seniors, reminding the administrators how awesome you are.
Yeah, I mean, the film was seen by a couple million kids throughout the 80s.
I can't even say those words out loud. Well,
is that all? Yeah.
So you're in your young 20s and you're getting this thing going. Jostens picks you up. At what point do you realize, Mark, dang it, I'm pretty good at this? Or maybe you didn't know yet. I'm very curious with that pathway to excellence. That part of it is understanding you don't suck, and then the next part is understanding actually I'm pretty good. Can you talk about that for you?
The thing about high schools are the high school principal determines the culture of the school. When you've got a great high school principal, you've got a great school. When you have a lousy principal, you have a lousy school. Lousy, I've never met a bad group of teachers, but I've met teachers that have been led really poorly and have a really bad attitude. Bring in a new principal and they completely change. Where that's going, I spoke at a lot of schools that I wouldn't want my kids to go to, let alone my dog to walk through, because they're poorly led. And those are rough shows. And I don't know about you, but I remember my bombs much better than I ever remember my wins. And to this day, I mean, the last time I spoke to students was 2015. That was my last high school assembly. But I can remember and still taste every bomb, every terrible assembly I ever had. And what that does is it keeps you in check, that you could have a really good presentation, but just around the corner, there might be one that doesn't hit. And so I've never felt like I've mastered this thing. Michelangelo, before he died, his last words, or supposedly some of his last words were, I'm not yet finished. I'm still learning. I mean, so I take it after Michelangelo of continually learning, continually getting better, continually finding ways to tweak, continually finding. I haven't found it yet. I'll let you know when I do.
Yeah, that's a hedge a little bit. Because I understand you, and I know you enough to know that that's true for you, that you are continuing. But at some point also there is a realization that, all right, I can do this. I'm good at it. And I'm wondering if it's the kids. One of my first jobs as a magician, Mark, was I worked at a Renaissance fair. And the way it works is people pay money to get in the fair, but they don't care about you. And then you stand there and say, hey, everybody, I'm doing a show. And people sit, maybe, if they are interested, and they watch a show, maybe. But very often for me, they would just get up and leave, right near the beginning or all the way throughout, proving that I didn't have it yet. And when the audience has stayed, there was a little bit of evidence that I was starting to get it. My gut tells me high school gyms are similar in that if you don't have them, and when you do have them. Is it that easy, or how? I'm still curious as to when you start to realize, even though you're not done, you're kind of good at this, dude.
Well, for high school, thanks. And I've been the Renaissance Fair as a viewer, not as a player. Yeah, that's a tough one to play. I knew with high school students, by the way that I started my presentation, whether I had them in the first 60 seconds or not. I knew exactly how I was going to go in the first 60 seconds on the type of opening I would use. And then we go from there. And what it taught me, though, which has really been helpful now, is on the ones that didn't hit the first 60 seconds, I have to go, okay, it's one of these. I'm going to have to earn this one. Now what do I do? So not all audiences react the same. I mean, perfect example, Brad, and I know this has happened to you, it's happened to every speaker, is that you'll be doing a presentation, you'll see somebody up front, and their face doesn't move the entire presentation. In fact, they're kind of frowning. They're looking at you like, and that person hates me. That person hates me. And one of the best advice I ever heard for speaking, whether you're a novice or at the career forever, when you look at the audience, if you see people who like you a lot, look at them a lot. If you see people that don't like you, don't look at them at all. And you'll be fine. Because if you look at the person that hates you, you're going, what's wrong? What am I doing? What is this?
Yeah.
And yet, how many times, if you have a person that doesn't express at all, and then they come up after the other end of the presentation, they go, I really loved your presentation. I got a lot out of it.
Right.
So,
like there's that joke, like, oh, tell your face. Like, it's so shocking that they liked it when you're like, I saw you. You hated me.
Yeah.
Nope.
So you just can't. You can't let an audience determine how you're going to do your show, right? You have to have enough experience that, all right, I'm gonna win this audience over at some point. I've got about 3 more key points coming up. One of them is gonna grab my hope.
Well, that's that confidence thing. So if you're new at this and you're in that gym and they're not with you, flop sweat and you talk too fast and it's over. But, you started to get enough confidence, or maybe you just were born with it. I can't figure out where you get your confidence.
No, it goes back to what you said.
Say, I got a chance with this audience. Hang with me.
It goes back to what you said earlier. A confidence comes with experience. I mean, the more you do something, the more you've screwed up, the more now I learned from that one. The more you're opening to learning, the more you're open to harsh criticism. I mean, you know this, Brad. My best speech coach is my wife, Susie. She watches 80% of my presentations and lets me know exactly what's going on. I think, Harvey McKay, Swim with the Sharks, author, he's a big-time speaker from Minnesota, and he's very wealthy. Harvey pays for coaches for everything: a sleep coach, a exercise coach, a speech coach. I think golfers go to coaches. If you want to be good at something, find somebody that's better than you and have them coach you. And so I've been fortunate to have Sue coach me, and because there's things that happen that you don't know. I was working on a new piece about airline peanuts, it
I
was just
miss those.
So Sue's in the back of the room, and I'm doing this new piece on airline peanuts, and a guy reacting harshly because some kid had a peanut allergy and they couldn't have peanuts on the plane. Anyway, it was about how to deal with, the big things in life. So I'm doing the story, and at the end of it, I said, what'd you think of that new story? She said, that's okay. I'm not sure if it's got legs or not, but make sure that when you say peanuts, you hit that T, because everybody in the back thought you said airline peanuts. So I changed it to almonds, which is better, but.
Yeah, you didn't mean to be doing blue humor. I'll have another penis. No, you can't say that.
Airline penis. Funny, but it doesn't really fit in.
I've heard you talk to other speakers, and definitely to me, about paying your dues. Are you still paying them, or was all of that 35? Did you say 35,000 shows, 3,500 shows?
Well, yeah, 3,500 high schools, and then probably 500, association business events. Yeah, so over 4,000.
Well, let's go back to you being afraid then. So I'm just the opposite. You give me a nice audience indoors. Everybody can see me and hear me just right. That is not terrifying to me. And you said that scared you after coming out of the gyms, which scares the crap out of me. Tell me about that transition for you. What was it like? And did you feel like they were as emotive as the kids? And were they, I'm guessing it's a really different audience for more than just the fact that you're not on a gym floor.
Well, if I had to go back and speak to high school students now, that would scare me, because I've been out of that realm for a while. And so I don't have a feel for them as much anymore. And I have learned that the adults whether they're in a Marriott ballroom or kids in a gym, they're people. Adults are kids that are still in high school. A lot of people still carry their high school traumas with them throughout the rest of their life, as far as how they see others, as far as how they judge other people.
Right.
You never get out of that cafeteria with the different cliques. But as far as adults, it was a matter of finding the right message that hit home. And so that was the creative thing of, okay, what's the message? And not the delivery, but how do I find the right message that will impact an adult audience? That's a universal that plays.
Okay, you blew my mind a little bit, because I've always thought, Mark, that the easy part of being a speaker is finding something to say. The hard part is being able to hold an audience. And what I heard you just say was, once you found something that resonates with them, it became easy. Do I have it wrong?
No, we just look at it differently. The reps, speaking a lot to kids in a gym taught me how to grab an audience, because you're dealing with a lot of things going on in the gym, a lot of kids, and keeping their attention. So finding a way to grab an audience, that's what I learned along the way. But to me, it's the difference between a good speaker and a great speaker. It's all about the writing. It's all about the stories. It's the original stories and the relevance to the audience that makes the biggest difference. So you can teach anybody to perform. There are people on Broadway that we couldn't carry their microphone. They're so talented. I don't know if there's a speaker in NSA that can play a platform as well as any kid on Broadway, right? That's doing Les Mis or any other show. They're so talented. So I think when it comes to, it's more about the material and the stories you tell and the relevance to the audience that's more important than how well you perform. That's a long pause.
It's so interesting, just because in my head I have that reversed. Like, clearly, nothing beats good material, right? You got to have good material, and clearly it has to resonate, and it has to be true, and you have to give a little bit of yourself. But it seems like, you could coach an entry-level speaker, and after a day and a half, you'd have the right stories to tell and the right message to make, and that entry-level speaker would still struggle because you could have taught them in a day and a half, but they still haven't done as many shows as you have.
You got to do the work. But you're amazing on stage. I'm not sure where you're
Well, I
coming
really
from.
am. I just think about coaching entry-level speakers, and they tell me, oh, I got my message and I have my 3 points and I've got stories to support them. I'm ready to go. And I think, no, you're not. You need audiences, and you need to bomb more and have good luck and have bad luck. And meaning their problem in my mind, Mark, the problem is not their material. The problem is they haven't done it enough.
You got to pay your dues, no matter what field you're in. I mean, that's one of the things I've always believed. But when I was in 7th grade, I looked up to 9th graders in a big way. When I was a sophomore in high school, I worshiped the seniors.
Yeah.
I've always looked up to people that are older than me, or have more experience than I do. So yeah, I mean, you said earlier, I've always believed in paying your dues. I do. You need to pay your dues. That just, you got to earn it. I mean, one of my favorite movies was Saving Private Ryan, Steven Spielberg. I mean, incredible movie. And Tom Hanks is on the bridge, and he's dying. Matt Damon is Private Ryan, and he whispers to, Tom Hanks whispers to Ryan. You can barely pick it out. I didn't pick it out the first time I saw the movie. He whispered, "Earn this, earn this." And at the end of the movie, Ryan, as an adult now, as an old grandfather, says to his wife, "Have I been a good man? Have I lived a good life? Did I earn this?" And I think it was really powerful. So I've always believed that in this world, A, you have to earn it. And B, you've got to give back. You got to make things better.
I think we're totally in agreement. We're just using different words for the same thing. You just did something that was so great. So, here we are talking, and before you know it, you're looking at the camera, and you made me feel all tingly when you're like, and then Tom Hanks whispered, and then I'm like, oh my God, this is great. The question becomes then, Mr. Scharenbroich, you're a motivational speaker. Is that your personality? Like, maybe I just saw a little bit right now, or is that just a job title and you're a chicken keeper who has string in your backyard, who just does that to pay some bills?
That's a sweet question. The big word you hear with national speakers or with presentations is authentic, isn't it? Brene Brown is whole big on being vulnerable and being authentic. My degree was in mass communications, right? I wanted to be a broadcaster, but I had a hard time pronouncing the names of leaders from third world countries. I mean, I'm terrible at names. I have a hard time. I'm not the brightest bulb in the room. I screw up a lot. I'm not a smooth speaker. I'm not eloquent. And with kids in high school, if you're fakey at all, they had you for lunch. And so, and again, I went through a lot of shows where I got beaten up quite a bit. I hope that anytime I'm in front of an audience, or that anytime anybody's in front of an audience, if you want to connect with them, it's more of a conversation than a presentation. I mean, there's presentational elements,
right?
Like in some of the characters that I do, like you do. But God, I hope it's a conversation. So I hope that answers your question about, do you go into motivational speaker mode, or do you have a conversation, or is it the chicken guy, or?
Well, there's another element that I'm really interested in. So it's related to confidence. I have been with you. I've been the recipient of your wisdom and your encouragement. And I have seen you encourage others, and you have enough gravitas that I suspect you've earned. And some of it is just in you, that when you lay it out, people say, coming from you, that's so wonderful. And it is. And I'm wondering if you feel like that's something you grew into, or that's just your personality type. For me, I sense some of that now, and I feel like I'm owning that. And it feels new. Ish, last 10 years or so. Can you comment on that? Like, when you look in someone's eye and say, I see greatness in you, that's some powerful stuff because of what you put behind it.
I don't know if I have that powerful stuff. I don't see that. But again, we go back to the experience thing. It's like asking somebody for directions. And if somebody has been somewhere 100 times, they can tell you exactly how to get there. But if somebody was there just once, oh, geez, you get on the road. Why don't you just use your phone? So, experience certainly helps of talking to somebody that's been there for a while.
Right.
I don't have a good answer for your question.
That was a good answer. Leon Tiemann, a fellow speaker, and I were talking, and I said, "Oh, isn't that weird, Leanne? After we do our talks, so we're off stage, and maybe they're buying our book or want a selfie or something like that, and they kind of treat you. They see a version of me that I don't see. They kind of think I'm more of a badass than sometimes I feel." And I was explaining that to Leanne, and kind of shucksing it, and isn't it? And she took me to task and said, "No. This is your duty. You have earned that from them. Whatever they're projecting upon them is your gift to them. And for you to deny it and say, oh, no, come on, I'm just a chicken guy, is doing a disservice for them, as long as you're not a jerk and as long as you stay healthy and humble and modest." And that's the thing I think you are so good at. And it's interesting to me that maybe you don't know it. You have that to say, I know what you're thinking. I got you.
Here's how I look
Yoda.
at it. No, here's how I look at it. When you were a kid, was one of your jobs being a paper carrier? Or as they called it back then, a paper boy?
I did that for one really long week. one week.
So my older brother's a paper carrier, and my older brother, both my brothers I was third generation paper carrier in our family, right? The third kid to carry a route. We all had the same route. And on Sunday mornings, you get up at 5 a.m. to deliver the paper. And of my 50 homes that it roughly delivered to, everybody wanted their paper a certain way. Some people between the doors, some people in this milk box that they had next to the door. They all had their under the doormat, whatever. They all had where they wanted it. And my job was to deliver that paper exactly how they needed it. And I look at my career in the same way, that my job is to deliver my message exactly where the audience needs it. As a carrier, I didn't write the paper. I wasn't the editor. I didn't print it. I didn't come up with the stories. I just delivered the paper. So that's where I kind of go with a bit of a higher spirit of beyond me, of where these creative ideas come from. And my job is, so I didn't write it. It came to me. My job is just deliver it. And so I can't take a lot of credit when people go up and say, that was amazing. Thanks a lot. I hope I delivered it in the right way today. Does that make sense at all?
Yeah, I totally understand you. And that makes me admire you even more because you're deflecting a little bit. I'd be shocked, Mark, if you ever said, "Yep, I am a badass. Thanks for noticing."
I've had some good speeches, but every one of them scares me still.
Do you still bomb?
Not like I used to. You want to hear a story?
Well, pretty please.
So I found this out earlier. When people ask me, what's tougher, speaking in a small school of 200 kids or 2,000 kids? I'd always say 200 kids because of the buddy factor. What's that? These kids are sitting in the gym and it's a small school. Well, if my buddy's laughing, it's probably pretty funny, so I'll laugh too. If my buddy's not laughing, it's probably not funny, so I'm not going to laugh either. The buddy factor played a lot in small schools. Now, if it was a wonderful small school, they'd laugh. But in some of the small schools, it was the buddy factor. It was a good presentation, the same as at the other school, but they just didn't laugh, and it felt like a bomb. So roll ahead a bunch of years. I'm speaking in Pittsburgh to construction workers. So there's construction workers throughout the U.S., some tougher than other, but Pittsburgh construction workers are seriously tough. It's a Holiday Inn. It's in a Holiday Inn, and there's 250 of them, and they drive trucks and dig big things. And I mean, they're pretty tough and rumble guys.
Right.
And they're not laughing at all. There's nothing.
Right.
And I'm thinking, damn it, it's the buddy factor. It's happening again. I'm back in a little small school and they're just not going to laugh. The power goes out. The transformer blew somewhere, and they're like, well, you know, we got some lights in the truck, because that's not a Pittsburgh accent. We got some lights in the truck. We can put them up because it's dark in here. And can you can probably just carry in the room. I said, yeah, I'll go on. Yeah, okay, just get the lights and we'll keep going, because they have to see me for this to work. So 8-10 minutes went by. Lights came back on. Okay, it's showtime again. Let's go back into it. So in the 10 or 12 minutes, as we're trying to figure this out, the audience, these guys are chatting. And when they came back, they were a completely different audience. Because, and I'm assuming during the break, they're going, what do you think? Yeah, he doesn't suck as much as the guy from the Rotary, did he? No, that guy sucked bad. This guy's not, he doesn't suck half as much as that. It was an affirmation of, hey, I guess it's okay. And then they came and they had their permission to laugh and respond, because they had to get permission from their buddies that I guess it is okay. So, you know, you still bomb. You have some programs where they just don't react as much as the other people do. And what you've learned is you just don't panic in those. You don't rush it, right? I mentioned that earlier. You don't start to press it. You just kind of relax. And
when I was a young man, Mark, by the way, I can picture that audience. When I was a young man, I was hired to be, there was a big black tie gala John Elway was hosting in Colorado as a fundraiser. And they hired a fancy pants magician named Mike Cavaney. And I was one of 6 or 8 magicians hired to walk around during cocktail hour and do card tricks. And that was good because I was going to get money. And better yet, I was going to get to see Mike Cavaney with a real audience. And he got up there. It was after dinner thing, and they were still eating, and it was crickets. Nothing was happening. Brutal. And then over time, he did earn them and closed big, and it was a huge success. And so people like me the magicians are talking to this guy going, oh man, what a brutal audience. And you won them over. Tough audience. They were a horrible audience. And he said, no, they weren't. They were fine. They were eating. They were checking me out. They were suspicious. They hadn't decided on me yet. They were fine. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about. Those guys who were quiet hadn't had information yet from their pals yet, but they were fine. They were liking you. They were connecting with Mark Scharenbroich. It's hard to get that, though.
I just didn't know it, that's all.
Right, and that's the brutal thing when you don't have the confidence or the track record. You don't know if you're bombing because you suck, or you don't know if you're bombing because they just haven't warmed up yet, or this is what success looks like for that particular audience. This is not an easy thing.
That's showbiz.
Are you a fan of comedy? Do you watch stand-up?
You know, yes, I don't study as much as I should. I don't analyze it. Give you an example. There's Tim Gard and there's Mark Mayfield, right? In the national speakers, and they're both very, very funny.
Yes, they are.
And George Campbell and Mark Mayfield, they understand comedy. They understand the science of it. They understand the types of jokes. They can put them all in columns. This is that type of joke. This is that. I mean, they've got it down. They really understand the science of comedy. Tim Gard is funny, but he doesn't know why. He does funny things, and audiences laugh, and he's happy.
Right.
I'm kind of more like Tim Gard than I am like Mark Mayfield and George Campbell, where it's funny, but I don't know why. And so, you know, do you study comedians a lot? I mean, there's a ton of them I really enjoy a lot. I mean, I'll watch anything on Seinfeld. I was in the 4th row in the middle watching Seinfeld in Minneapolis, and for the first 15 minutes, I didn't even smile. I didn't laugh at all because I was in awe of just, it's Seinfeld. This is the guy that is as good as it gets and who's brilliant. So, I mean, I love watching comedians, but I wouldn't say I study them.
That means for Seinfeld, he came off stage and said, "Did you see that one guy in the 4th row who hates me?" he hates me.
I think more important is if you're a speaker entertainer, it's more important to go to a Renaissance fair. It's more important to go to a Broadway show. It's more important to go see a comedian. It's more important to get a broad range watch a wide range of entertainment, of people performing in front of an audience, to understand the relationship between performer and audience. I think I've done more of a effort of trying to be exposed to a wide range of different performers.
Right. One time, you and I were at a speakers conference, and you did the best session I maybe have ever seen, Mark, at a conference. And what happened? It was near the end, and you had your notes, and you kind of broke down why other speakers did well. And I remember Harry Beckworth. He had this. He joked about having a $30 pair of socks or something, and you said, "Did you notice how he didn't say a $3,000 suit?" Which he totally had on. He said socks, and see what he did there, and why is that important? And I'm like, oh my God, Mark, that is so smart. I swear there's a question. Stick with me. There was another time, though, fast forward at NSA, where you and me and a bunch of people were talking about other speakers privately, we thought, and saying, that part of it fell flat for me. That part did not connect with me. Oh, that part I loved. Oh, he loved that. And somebody challenged us and said, this is rude. And I don't know if it was you or someone else said, like, no, this is how you learn how to be a speaker. You got to process. You got to learn from each other. You got to have people point out stuff. Do you remember that at all? And because I think part of what you said is you just need to be exposed to other speakers. But I would say also, it's helpful to get feedback on what's working for other people, having them analyze it for you.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that entirely. And I was sitting at the table because we were talking about the speaker and what they did right, what they did wrong, and just analyzing it. And this person was just offended that we would, kind of talk behind the guy's back and that sort of thing. I just picture, I don't care who it is, whether it's football players, whether it's artists, whether it's race car drivers, no matter what it is, and you pull them together in a coffee shop or a bar and they're talking about somebody else and what they're doing, they're going to look at all sides of it and say, did you see what they did in that turn? That was just, man, they did kind of screwed up, but then they came back on the finish. And I think it's just human nature is if it's in your field and you look at somebody that is up on the main stage or anywhere, that's performing, you analyze. It's how we learn from each other, by watching and making comments. But
I think some of those sessions in the hallway saying, like, what'd you think? Why did that go so well? Or why did it not go so well? Man, that is the most valuable part. It's, seeing the keynote helpful and then having other people catch things you missed. Oh, brilliant. How authentic should we be? And let me give you the story on this. Comedy, at least to my eyes, has become more authentic. Started out with Milton Berle and Bob Hope talking jokes about I just bought a new car, and here's a joke about a car, but here's a joke about my mother-in-law. And then we become more authentic, and now it feels like the new top comics are extremely personal, talking about sex, their own sex life. They're talking about their own addiction issues. They're talking about their dad who hit them. I don't know, but I kind of think speakers are following that path too, where they're being more authentic. Are you seeing that at all? Or, and I'm not talking trainers who say, here's the 3 C's of leadership, but I'm saying people like you that go up and tell personal stories. How authentic are you, and how should we be? Is there too far?
I heard, I like Louis C.K. Louis C.K. ran into his problems, Louis C.K.'s, and but I think he's very funny and original. And he was talking about, he was paying his dues. He was working at a Chinese restaurant, right, doing comedy at the buffet, and which I can't imagine a worse gig in the world. He says he was just doing that kind of stuff because that's what he had. And he was doing a lot of dog jokes and airline jokes and just stupid stuff that everybody was doing. And hey, Why do guys do this? Why do girls do that? And it's just stupid. And he had the opportunity to talk to George Carlin, because George Carlin would write a new show for HBO every year. Where does George Carlin come up with this incredible material? His brain was just amazing. And what Carlin said to him was, you need to take that onion and just peel off those layers and layers and layers and go deeper and deeper and deeper. And that's where you're going to find your real humor. It's not this is what dogs do. This is what cats do. Any cat lovers out there, go deeper into yourself to find it. And the next show, Louis C.K. was in front of the audience, and he has two little girls. And he did a joke like, I always hear these stories about kids that end up in a dumpster, and I think it's horrible. But now that I have two girls, there are times I understand why. and the audience just did this reaction, right? And he said, it was better than the stupid dog and cat joke. It's something that connected with the audience. So I think where we're going on your question is, as far as comedians and stuff, they're going a lot deeper, pulling off a lot layers, going into that real inner self of how we really look at things and feel about things. So the people in the audience are going, hey, that's me. I mean, anytime, no matter what the story is, a performance, if you're on stage and you can get an audience member to go, hey, that's me, and how they react to it, that's a connection. And that's what you want to reach for. And so I think whether you call that authentic or not, I'm not sure, but it's going a lot deeper of opening yourself up to find the humor or the message or the pain.
Well, and to use the word you used earlier, vulnerable, I think if you would have told me 20 years ago, dude, you need to be more vulnerable for those corporate groups, those people in their suits, I would have said, that is crazy talk. You need to go out there with a shell. And now the more I do it, I realize the more I'm telling about my real life and my real problems and my real anxieties and whatever, the more they say, like, dude, that was what we needed.
And that's what you learn through experience. The more you're up there, the more you learn.
I wish I would have known all of this earlier, but I don't think I was ready for it. You could have told me this at age 27 and I would have nodded, oh, thanks, Mark, and I wouldn't have got it.
Oh, come on. If we could go back to junior high, knowing then what we know now, we'd go back in a New York minute. But if they just said you have to relive your junior high years over again, never in a million years. I'll die first. So yeah, that's how life is. I mean, wouldn't it be fun to go back with the experience we have so we could fix all those things? And,
Yeah, if we could go back now, we would dominate Instagram as an eight-year-old. I know how to do analytics. None of the third graders do. Going to be awesome.
So, so I think the real thing is to take what you've learned now, right? And just say, okay, if I had to do junior high over again, or if I had to do my high school years over, or my first job over again, what would I do differently? And you write down those lessons that you would do differently. And then you fast forward and go, okay, now that I'm approaching the next 10 years, what did I learn in junior high that I could apply the next 10 years? That would let me have more fun, more confidence, more giving of myself versus being so darn afraid and intimidated.
Is that what your book is about?
No, but that's not a bad idea.
Right, like wisdom. What I need to know to get through the next decade, based on wisdom from me.
Well, yeah, somebody did write a book about it. It was called "Everything I Needed to Know About Life and Learned in Kindergarten."
Yeah. Right.
And they took all the kindergarten rules, and if you apply those to life, oh my God, they work. That
is pretty inspiring, though. I've never done that. Right? Like, what were the learning points at some of the big parts of my life? And then ask myself, am I applying them, and how do they apply to me as I start stuff tomorrow?
We had 3 rules for our kids, other than, don't put your finger in an electric socket, don't do drugs, don't make any little Scharenbroichs before it's your time. Obviously those. But we had 3 rules for our kids. A, pick up after yourself. B, okay, now I'll do 1, 2, 3. Number 1, pick up after yourself. Number 2, put one in for the team. And number 3, be happy. So A, if you took some stuff out, put it back, okay? Take care of your mess. I'm not going to clean up after you. B, be a family member, contribute. And C, don't be a jerk. Don't be sulky. Be happy. Life is good. And our kids say that they still use those rules. In fact, our son that's got our grandkids says those are the rules I use with my kids. I mean, those three rules apply to everything in life. Take care of your junk. Clean up your own messes. Contribute to others. And be a Brad Montgomery. Be happy when you're around people.
Aw.
Did you have rules for your kids other than let's go to Mexico and have you have a different?
Yeah, and I got them all from our therapist, so that was totally worth it. Yeah, what I learned with my kids is that what worked for kid number 1 did not work for kid number 2, and kid number 3, good luck, you need a new one. So, meaning we did have rules, and they worked perfectly for our eldest. But then later on, we learned, oh, she's a little perfectionist and just kind of parents herself. And then so we needed different rules for the second kid, and then the third one was a blend. So no, I feel like we're still rewriting those rules daily, Mark.
Yeah, that's true. Every kid is different. But there are some general things that work.
Well, we've talked in our family a lot about respect. Like if you just use respect, almost every question you have about your behavior, it will be answered. And like put stuff away because it respects others.
See,
be happy because you need them. Respect for others. Don't bring them down. And contribute for the team. Respect. I guess I do have rules.
Yeah, you did have one.
My keynote's going to be called the single R of raising children.
It'll work.
Tell me a little bit about virtual, and I really want to ask you about hope because I don't want to take too much of your time. But what's it been like for you, and what have you learned, and do you like it? I
mean, this sort of thing is a lot of fun. Reacting and listening to you and chatting. There's a feedback, right? And as you know, when you do a virtual presentation, you're in front of your camera and you're doing your piece, but you have no idea how the audience is reacting.
No.
I think for people that are giving instructions or how to, I think it's very effective. But I think if you want to get people to laugh or feel emotions or open up their mind or touch their heart, it's a vacuum. And so you kind of rely on what you know worked in front of a live audience, and you hope that it works in front of this group, but you have no idea. And people are nice. They go, gee, thanks a lot. That was really good. But they'll say that to anybody,
Yeah.
What's the answer is, am I a fan of virtual? Do I think it's, no, right? This is something that's going to get us through until, and people say that, oh no, I think in the future there's still going to be a lot of Zoom meetings, and I kind of think people hate it. I don't know. I'm sure there's some people out there right now that go, no, I think it's the real deal, and this is where we're going. I think people want to be together. Here's the difference, okay? What's one of your favorite funny movies to watch?
I just saw Elf at Christmas time and made me laugh.
Elf is funny. Elf is a great movie. All right, so you go see Elf, and you're in a movie theater, and you're the only one there, and there's 500 seats. Are you laughing hysterically? No, you're just chuckling quietly to yourself. If the theater's full and there's 500 people there, you're busting a gut. You're laughing hard because of the electricity of the people in the audience. Well, that's my answer to virtual. It's like sitting in a theater by yourself watching a presentation. There's nobody to react to. It's like those Pittsburgh construction workers. What do you think? He doesn't suck. He's okay. Yeah, he's all right. I mean, we need that interaction with people.
Right. Agreeing with you 100% and permission to challenge you.
Yeah, would you like it?
Well, first of all, I'm struck with how hard it is, but I also am over time embracing it a little bit, including the emotional part. Like, okay, what can I do to enjoy this? What can I do to feel as though this is helpful? But the question for you and for me was, have you ever seen a TED Talk, which I've never been there in person. For me, that's always through a computer screen. Have you ever seen a TED Talk that made you glad you were seeing it? You've seen it. And for me, the answer is hell yeah. And that kind of helped me a little bit. Okay, I wasn't laughing. I wasn't engaged in the way that I would typically think of as engaged. Yet, I told my wife afterwards, hey, I saw this thing. And I thought about it afterwards. And sometimes I changed my behavior because of it. Not all of them, but the good ones. And I think we have that as a tool.
Okay, I changed my mind.
That was so easy. I'm trying to do right now, Mark, what I'm struggling with is the mix between doing what we're doing now, just yapping at a camera, and pre-record it. And let me explain. Sometimes for our clients, they say, hey, we have a weird platform. You're never going to see anybody. There's no gallery view. There's no back and forth. It's just you and your camera, and then your soul will be dead, and then it's over. And for those, I'm kind of thinking, well, pre-recorded has some advantage. We can edit it. We can, if we screw up, we can say it twice. We could bring in different lights. I could put up, I could put my name underneath. Yet there's something true about this to the camera thing. So I've been experimenting with having a blend of pre-recorded little bits, like a little YouTube video of Brad talking, but with a little bit of creativity, and then also just me yapping to the camera. I have not figured out that blend yet. I feel like my recipe's in the works.
Well, let me go back and answer now that I've had time to think and answer your question better. You asked, do I like the virtual? No. Is virtual, because I'm missing the feedback from the audience of looking in their eyes and seeing if it's connecting and if I need to adjust. It's not the laughter that makes a difference, although, if you hear it, you know that they're laughing, it's that they're engaged. But it's am I connected with my audience? Are they getting this message? What do I need? Because you do the same thing. I've seen you. We adjust in our presentation. It's not cookie cutter. So is virtual effective? Yes. Are TED Talks effective? Yes. Steve Martin does a thing on comedy on that subscription service. I forget the name of it. You've seen it advertised.
Yeah. I kind of forgot about it. I'm interested.
It's a subscription service on cooking, on music, on the arts, on comedy, and they have
master class or something.
Master classes, right?
Yeah.
So ask Steve Martin. Steve, what's more fun for you, to talk about comedy in front of a camera, or talk about comedy in front of 50 comedians? Which one's more engaging? I'm going to bet you $1 that he says in front of an audience.
Yeah.
So it's two questions. A, as you as a performer, do you enjoy it? Creatively, it's a challenge. I can't say I enjoy it, but is it effective for the listener? Can be, absolutely.
Yeah.
And as far as your clippets go, yes. Did you watch Late Night Comedians when the pandemic first hit and they were performing in front of no audience?
Fascinating.
Seth Meyers and all. Remember how awkward they were? Just terribly awkward. It was painful.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have the rhythm, they didn't have thing. And then as they got into it, they got into their own rhythm. And what they used were a lot of little pieces, snippets that came in, special effects, clips, like you're talking about, because it was much more engaging for the audience. So I think what you're doing is really effective.
We're in agreement. It sucks in that way, and that really hard to know if you're doing well because you can't hear anything. Really hard if you did well, because as you said, your clients tend to say, that was great, even if it wasn't. And impossible to adjust midstream because of all of those things. And that, I find myself after doing, I haven't done hundreds of them, but after the ones I've done, I'm so pooped out. Like my soul is just left here, right here on my little desk.
Do you all see those ads for dating? There's a ton of them now, right?
Like dating apps. Tinder or whatever.
Dating apps of, yeah, there's all kinds of things, how to meet people, right? And that's been going on for a while. I wish they'd been around, because I met Susie, fell in love, and bam. Because I'd love to see how those things work, but I'm not going to ever go there to see how they work. But I mean, so back to the virtual thing, what's the difference between a couple talking like this and getting to know each other on a first date versus if they're at a restaurant together and spending time with each other face to face? Don't you think they get a much better read of they get a read of each other like this, but if they're in a restaurant together looking across the table, the chemistry is much bigger. There's some chemistry with this, but live across the table, it's much bigger chemistry. The whole body language, everything about it, how they react to people around them. So I think that's the same way.
Yeah. There's this cute little theater in a suburb of Denver, and it's kind of dumpy, just this side of dumpy. And they don't pay their actors. They get all community volunteers. And I will see anything in that theater and love it because it's live and it's this cute little theater and you're close to them. I'll see anything. And I pretty much always love it because of that. And I think that's what you're talking about. There's something about being in the room. Really hard to replicate that.
As soon as meetings start again, it's going to be like the Roaring '20s. It's going to be the greatest renaissance of meetings in Marriott ballrooms and Holiday Inns across the world, of people once again getting together, being in the hallway afterwards, getting the coffee and the cookie during the break,
right?
Of interacting with people. Hey, what'd you think? I think people are going to be so excited to be back together again. I'm optimistic. That's where my hope is. I think that, and not just in our profession, but I think for people to go back and go to a restaurant and sit across the table from somebody with no mask and everybody there laughing and happy and ordering again. We already have our top 3 restaurants picked out that we can't wait to go to in Minneapolis. I want to go to a movie theater. I've been to a movie theater I want to go to a movie theater and laugh with people in the theater. I think people are going to be so excited to connect and be with each other and interact with each other. I mean, Susie's picking up all these phone calls of spam calls just to have somebody to talk to other than me. Where are you calling from? How long have you been doing this? Do you enjoy it? Is it fun? Oh, really? How many people you called today?
I also have that enthusiastic hope of, I think people are going to crave it as much as I do and want to get back and be willing to put their money where their mouth is. Yeah, there's also a little piece of me, Mark, that kind of like staying home, like, oh, I don't have to drive across town. I'll just do it right here. I don't even have to put my pants on. This is great.
What's really fun for me are those 4 words, the 4 words you hear before every presentation.
Is my mic on?
Or six words. No.
Can you hear me?
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Brad Montgomery. Those are 6 words. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mark Scharenbroich. Those are magical words. And when you hear those words and then you walk up to the stage, that walk, hearing those words and making that walk until the first word is said, that's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah.
Versus, all right, so everybody on the Zoom, hit your mute buttons. Let's go to Mark. Mark, are you there? Here, I don't think his mic is on. Is your mic? It's not the same. It's not the same as, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Brad Montgomery. So I'm looking forward to that again. But the much bigger picture is when you take something away from someone, you can't have chocolate for a year. But the first time you have chocolate, it's pretty darn good. You appreciate that chocolate. You can't have human contact for a year. You can't do all those things you really enjoy doing. Now you have to find your creativity and where to put your energy someplace else, like raising chickens. But you're not going to be able to do any of these things for a year. And when we get back to it, when Prohibition ended, people had a pretty good time. Stock market went up. A lot of people danced. And I think so. That's my hope, is that when this is over, it's going to be more than just, oh gosh, speakers get to have meetings again. It's that human beings get to have human contact again and be with each other and celebrate and feel. And again, when something's taken away from you, when you have it back, you really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Those things that are taken for granted are much more appreciated when they're taken away.
Mic drop.
Have you ever done that in a show?
My client would kill me. Like, dude, that's not even our microphone.
I'm afraid
you can't do. It's not even ours.
I like the tech people. I think they're amazing, and they're jaded. I love tech people because they're jaded because they hear all these different people. If you make them smile, it's a big win. You drop their mic, and I don't want them upset.
Can you? Well, because I have more tech with my programs than you do because I'm an idiot. I think is the real reason.
Who invented mic drop? Who invented mic drop?
No idea. No, I don't know. Do you know?
Yes, I kind of think I do. And his name escapes me right now. It'll come to me. From New York, comedian, black guy, short, paces a lot on the stage.
Chris
Rock? A lot
of
energy. Chris Rock.
Ah.
I'll bet you money if you Google who did the first mic drop, it was Chris Rock.
Well, now I'm curious.
Yeah. I'll be right back.
Okay. Yeah, mic drop now just means, and we're out. All right, Mark Scharenbroich, nicebike.com. Dang it, I'm so glad. These little podcasts have been so fun for me. It's basically an excuse to call people I really admire and say, what are you thinking about? So I'm really glad you got to say yes.
Thanks.
I'm grateful. Hang with me for just a minute. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you guys.